So, I want to talk about another phase in my past that I went through. A very horrid part in my young life. I was young, I was impressionable, I was stupid. This was around the time that I got my first boyfriend. So, before we get into this dark past of mine, I want to thank Amy, aka Ben of Trash, because she provided all the visuals you're gonna see in this video. Amy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And just a heads up, I asked her for this pretty late, so the color and the background are gonna be taken out of it. But Amy, thank you so much for your hard work. I appreciate it very much. Mwah. Okay, but yes, let's delve into this dark part of my history. So let me start this video by saying that in my life, I've had a total of 3 boyfriends. One was in middle school, and he's gonna be the one we're gonna be talking about today. The other one was in high school, and I don't know if I ever wanna talk about him. And the last one, well, I married, of course, and most of you guys know him. I love you, Jason. Thinking back on it, I had a lot of people interested in me relationship-wise. Like, I'm not trying to gloat or anything, but I was pretty hot back in the day. Like, I had really big personality. Just kidding. I'm not sure why people were interested in me, just know that I had a lot of weird encounters happen, and I'll probably tell stories about that stuff later. Maybe. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but back to the topic. So I was in 7th grade around this time, and I remember the specific detail because our school was the kind of school where if you were in a certain grade, you got a certain color shirt. And 7th grade, we had this ugly caca blue shirt. Like, seriously, I hated that color back then, and I'm not sure why. It was just a gross, it was gross. Around this time, it seemed like all my friends were getting in relationships. In fact, it seemed like my entire class were getting in relationships. It actually became an issue where teachers had to step in because people were kissing outside the classroom before class because it was cute for people to walk each other to class and all this lovey-dovey, yucky stuff. At the time, I thought it was gross, but I also thought it was interesting too. I was a pretty hopeless romantic around this time, and I was also very impressionable. Now, me, back then, being the person who wore cat ears, had a very difficult time with interacting with people and figuring out their motives. There were some people who were interested in me because they were genuinely interested in me, and there were some people who were interested in me because their friends dared them to. And yeah, I actually went through that a few times, and it was really awkward. It became pretty difficult for me to read the intentions behind people's motives for talking to me, but I remember specifically there was this one guy that was pretty cute, and I found out that he was interested in me, and this guy ended up being my middle school boyfriend, and for this episode, I'm going to call him Idiot. What? Look, our relationship didn't end well. Fine, for this episode, I'm gonna call him E. And E, if you're watching this, just know that I don't have any hard feelings towards you. It was something in our past that happened a long time ago, and honestly, I've moved past it. And it's an experience that, well, not only am I sharing with the world right now, but it's an experience that taught me very valuable lessons about my self-worth. So if you're watching this, no hard feelings, and I hope you're doing well. Anyway, so back to the story. I don't remember the exact details of how we got together, but I remember that a ton of our friends were meddling in our, getting togetherness. It was really weird how, gossipy my friends were at the time. For example, one of my friends heard he was really cute, and so they came and told me that, and I said, hey, he's pretty cute too. And that managed to get back to him, and I guess he decided to confront me about it, so he ended up coming up to me and confronting me, and I was just shocked that he even approached me. But anyway, we were in orchestra class, and he approached me, and he started to talk to me, and what happened was he ended up just saying, hey, I heard you thought I was pretty cute, and I was like, looking at him, I was scared, I was nervous, I wasn't sure how to exactly talk to him, but I managed to muster up all my courage, basically puff out my chest, and give him a resounding, yeah, I like it. It's cool, I mean, what was I gonna say? I wasn't expecting this. From that point on, we started hanging out more together. We finally decided, hey, we're gonna be boyfriend and girlfriend. And it was just, I don't know, he started walking me to class, and we'd go to lunch together and stuff like that, because lunch was at the same time during our orchestra class, so the first thing that we did as soon as we got into the class was just go to lunch and then come back for the class. It was this weird blocking of, periods. Basically, I ended up really liking this guy, but looking back on it, it was really odd. It started to get odd in the sense that it started to feel really hollow. He told me the things that I wanted to hear. He rarely shared his opinion on things, and not that it had to be positive or negative, it's just that it rarely felt like we were having an actual conversation. And overall, just interactions started to feel really hollow after a certain period of time. And it really got super weird whenever like he would obviously want to kiss and stuff like that and like make out. And it was like there were times I didn't want to do that, and whenever he would ask, I was just like, no, thank you. And it was weird because he started to make me feel bad for doing that. Doing that as in rejecting his advances. And just a heads up, for those of you guys watching, if people make you feel bad for rejecting their advances, just go ahead and reject them outright because they ain't worth your time of day to even be with. Trust me, if someone makes you feel uncomfortable in a situation where you should feel comfortable with, just, again, out of your life. Just get them out of your life. Trust me. It's a huge deal breaker. In short, don't be stupid like I was. Trust me, it's a difficult lesson to learn, but it's a lesson well worth learning because your self-worth is so much more valuable than pleasing somebody else. So after a while in our relationship, he started to really ignore me. Like, it was blatantly obvious. We were still dating, but he would sit far away from me during lunch, and I didn't really mind this at first. But the more it kept happening, I started wanting to know why. So one time, I went up to him and asked if we could sit together. And I remember him saying, "What, I can't sit with other people?" And it was just really weird. I wasn't demanding an answer or anything, but it was said in a way that made me feel really guilty for even asking. And after that, I didn't even bother to ask him. I just let it go. He wouldn't walk me to class anymore, and he'd rarely talk to me. I should have taken those as red flags to confront him about this, but I didn't. I started to feel slowly isolated, and then one day I ended up coming to school, and all of our friends were just acting super weird around me. They were looking at me like they knew something that I didn't. And I would find out later that day that it was because they knew something that I didn't. So this day keeps going on, and it just keeps getting worse. It's just, there was a bullying incident in the beginning of that day. There was just my friends acting super weird and making me feel isolated, and it was just a horrible day. So when I got to orchestra class, I was just I was emotional. Like, I was ready, I was on the verge of tears. it was just a mess of emotions. Just trust me on this. This day was pretty painful to remember, so if I start getting a little weird, sorry. So come orchestra class, everyone is still acting super weird around this time, and again, I'm there, I'm emotional, and I guess this kid, I'm gonna call him T, must have heard about this incident from before and decided to start teasing me about my physical appearance, which, my God, this was just, it was just a horrible day. Just trust me, it was a horrible day. So T starts teasing me about my physical appearance, and he's just very pushy, and normally I'm not the confrontational type, but today I just had enough of everybody's BS at this point that I decided to stand up to him and basically call him a name, and it was wrong of me. I'm gonna say this right here and now that don't retaliate like that. Just do not, it's not worth it, and you really should get help from a teacher or an adult if you can, because it's not worth it to get into a confrontation with anybody. Just trust me, it was stupid and I shouldn't have called him a name, but it got even worse. So T is pretty pissed off at this point, and he starts to get physical with me, not in a way where it's super crazy, but he starts trying to pull off my jacket that actually belongs to my boyfriend E at this time. Now keep in mind, I did not grow up in a very nice neighborhood. It was a very bad part of the neighborhood. So it wasn't super crazy, but it wasn't great most of the time. Some of the guys here didn't care if you were a girl. If you said anything to them, they would get into a physical confrontation with you, and it's just, you had to watch out what you say. You really had to watch out. Anyway, I end up on the floor, and I guess at that point, T's decided that, hey, it's enough, and decided to just leave me alone at that point, and it sucks. It really sucked. Guys, I'm gonna say this now, don't bully anybody. It's just, trust me, it's not fun. Anyway, at this point, I'm already broken enough as it is. I'm just completely out of it, and thinking that there's no way this day could get any worse. But, here comes my then boyfriend E, all hold my beer. So our orchestra teacher comes in, and she calls everyone to lunch. She's a really nice lady, and she reminds me of Judge Judy, but with white hair. So what happens is, She calls everyone to lunch and everyone goes, but my then boyfriend E comes up to me and says like, hey, we need to talk. And at this time, like, my day just went from like 0 to like 50%. Like, I feel pretty good because he wants to talk to me. It's been a while and I'm just excited. But little did I know that that isn't really a good phrase for people to say when you're in a relationship. So he meets me in the hall and I'm excited for what he has to tell me. I'm thinking finally he might want to have lunch with me. But he looks me in the eye and tells me, I want to break up with you. Now, I looked at him and responded, about time. I deserve better than you. You treated me like trash for the most part of our relationship. Bye, Felicia. But that's not how I actually responded. I looked at him and just started crying. I may have handled it more gracefully if everything else didn't pile up on top that day, but I was just done, I guess. So he asks for his jacket back and I end up giving his jacket back to him. And I guess somewhere I felt like this was coming because, I don't know, I guess it was just the way he was treating me prior to this and all the events that led up to it. But I felt like this was coming, but I didn't want to accept it at the time because for me, think about it this way. He was my first boyfriend. I felt like that was it. The universe has judged me. That was the only love story I was ever going to have and nothing else was going to happen. And that's it. You're done with love, Jessica. Like, you're not going to have anyone else. And that's a very valid way to feel because at the time you don't know any better. You don't have many experiences and you're not sure how to take that kind of pain because it really hurts. Again, there was no hiding it. And later I found out that apparently he was talking to some of our friends for like about a month and they knew about this before I did. So this was a really sucky situation to be in. So after lunch is over, we go back to class and Mrs. L around this time tells us, hey, you're gonna go practice sheet music. And I guess she looks at me and realizes that something is off because we're pretty close, like as student and teacher. And so she looks at me and she sees that I'm not my normal, like happy, peppy self. And she asked me to come into her office. Now she must have been like a wise old sage or something because she looked at me and she asked me if E had dumped me. And I look at her and ask like, how did you know? And she was looking at me like, you're not wearing his jacket and y'all been acting like super weird for the past month and it's just been really off. I told her what happened and she gave me a hug. She then looked at me and said, let him go. You'll find someone else better who will treat you right. Don't doubt that. And somehow that made me feel really good. But then I went back to crying in her office and she told me that I could hang out there if I wanted. She said it was going to hurt, but that it'll heal. She was actually a really nice lady, and I thank her for her advice that day. And she was right. I ended up being with someone better who treats me with respect and loves me for who I am. Jason. Anyway, I eventually got over it, but what I ended up finding out was that he was seeing another girl from homeroom behind my back while he was with me. So when I found that out, I was just like, you know what? Good luck to her. Good luck. While it was really painful, it taught me a very valuable lesson about knowing your self-worth. And also what not to put up with in a relationship because that is just absolutely unacceptable. In short, if you can't be open with your partner about things that bother you and vice versa, then it's probably best to really rethink the relationship and try to work it out. If that doesn't work out, then it's probably best you decide to split. Look, I'm just trying to teach a life lesson while trying to tell a story at the same time. You get me, right? Like, we gotta learn a lesson from this, right? Like, there's gotta be a lesson. Like, are you even paying attention? Just remember to value your self-worth and find someone who respects you and doesn't treat you like a pile of dog poop. Anyway, that is it for the story time. Let me know what you guys think if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care. Bye! Say bye! You don't care because you sleep all the time. We need to seriously have a conversation, Jet, like a story time about like how you don't support this channel. Like you're just asleep during videos. Like, I can't believe you, Jet. I just told a heart-wrenching story and you didn't even like bother. Like you just didn't bother at all. Are you even paying attention?